Self-focus is often misunderstood as selfishness, but in reality, it is one of the most strategic decisions a person can make. When you focus on yourself, you are choosing clarity over chaos, intention over impulse, and direction over distraction. Instead of reacting to everything happening around you, you begin to move deliberately, guided by your own goals and standards rather than the shifting expectations of others. A strategic advantage means having an edge, and self-focus creates that edge by protecting your time and energy. Every day, countless demands compete for your attention, and without self-focus, your energy gets fragmented. When you focus on yourself, you become selective about where you invest your effort, ensuring that what you give your time to actually moves your life forward. Focusing on yourself sharpens your decision-making. When your mind is cluttered with opinions, comparisons, and external pressures, your judgment becomes clouded. Self-focus clears that noise and allows you to make choices aligned with your long-term vision instead of short-term approval. This clarity compounds over time, leading to better results and fewer regrets. Self-focus also builds emotional stability. When your sense of worth is anchored internally, external praise and criticism lose their power over you. You stop swinging between confidence and insecurity based on how others respond. This emotional consistency becomes a strength that allows you to stay focused even when circumstances are uncertain or challenging. Another strategic benefit of self-focus is skill development. When you stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against your own potential, growth accelerates. You invest in learning, practice, and improvement because the goal is mastery, not validation. Over time, this commitment to self-improvement separates you from those who are distracted by comparison. Self-focus strengthens discipline. Discipline requires saying no to distractions that feel good in the moment but cost you in the long run. When your attention is centered on your own progress, it becomes easier to resist what does not align with your goals. This consistency, repeated daily, quietly builds momentum that others rarely notice until it is undeniable. Focusing on yourself also reduces dependency on external motivation. Instead of waiting for encouragement or recognition, you learn to move based on internal standards. This independence gives you resilience because your progress no longer depends on whether someone else believes in you or supports your journey. Self-focus encourages accountability. When you stop blaming circumstances or people for your situation, you take ownership of your actions and results. This ownership is empowering because it places control back in your hands. With accountability comes the ability to make adjustments, correct mistakes, and continuously refine your approach. Another advantage of self-focus is mental resilience. Challenges, setbacks, and delays are inevitable. But when your focus is inward, you interpret these obstacles as feedback rather than failure. You analyze, adapt, and persist instead of quitting or becoming discouraged. This mindset allows you to keep moving forward regardless of external conditions. Over time, self-focus creates alignment between who you are and what you do. Your actions begin to reflect your values, your habits support your vision, and your daily choices move in the same direction. This alignment becomes a quiet but powerful advantage that steadily positions you ahead of those who are constantly reacting to the world around them. Validation dependency begins subtly, often disguised as a desire to be liked, accepted, or understood. At first, it feels harmless, even normal, to care about what others think. But over time, this reliance on external approval slowly shifts control away from you and places it in the hands of people who are not responsible for your growth, your future, or your fulfillment. When personal power depends on validation, confidence becomes unstable. A compliment can elevate your mood instantly, while criticism can dismantle it just as fast. This emotional volatility makes it difficult to stay consistent because your sense of worth rises and falls based on reactions rather than reality. True power requires steadiness, not emotional dependence. Validation dependency also distorts decision-making. Instead of asking what is right, necessary, or aligned with your goals, you begin asking what will be accepted or applauded. Choices become filtered through fear of rejection rather than clarity of purpose. Over time, this leads to compromises that slowly pull you away from your authentic path. Another consequence of seeking validation is the loss of self-trust. When you constantly look outward for reassurance, you stop listening to your own instincts and judgment. Doubt replaces intuition and hesitation replaces action. This erosion of self-trust weakens your ability to move decisively even when opportunities are clearly in front of you. Validation dependency encourages people-pleasing behavior, which drains energy and creates resentment. You give more than you should, agree when you want to say no, and suppress your truth to maintain approval. This constant self-suppression chips away at confidence and leaves you feeling exhausted and unfulfilled. Personal power diminishes when identity is shaped by opinions. Instead of defining yourself by values, principles, and goals, you begin to mirror expectations placed on you. This shifting identity makes it difficult to grow because growth often requires disappointing people who prefer the familiar version of you. Fear becomes a driving force when validation is required for self-worth. Fear of criticism, fear of judgment, and fear of being misunderstood start to dictate behavior. This fear limits risk-taking, creativity, and bold action, all of which are essential for meaningful progress and transformation. Validation dependency also weakens resilience. When setbacks occur, instead of seeing them as part of the learning process, you interpret them as proof that you are not good enough. This interpretation magnifies failure and reduces persistence, making it harder to recover and continue forward with confidence. As reliance on approval increases, autonomy decreases. You wait for permission to act, approval to decide, and recognition to feel accomplished. This waiting creates stagnation because life rewards initiative and ownership, not hesitation driven by external reassurance. Breaking free from validation dependency restores personal power by reconnecting you with internal standards and self-defined success. When approval is no longer required to move forward, confidence becomes self-generated, decisions become intentional, and progress becomes sustainable. Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls meant to keep people out, but in truth, they are guidelines that define how you allow yourself to be treated. When you establish boundaries, you communicate to yourself first that your time, energy, and well-being value. This internal acknowledgement is the foundation of self-respect because you cannot honor yourself while allowing constant intrusion or disregard. Self-respect grows when you recognize that not every request deserves access to you. Without boundaries, your time becomes available to everyone and everything, leaving little room for what truly matters. By setting limits, you protect your priorities and create space for growth, rest, and focus. This protection is not rejection of others, but affirmation of yourself. Boundaries require clarity about your values. When you know what you stand for, it becomes easier to decide what you will and will not tolerate. This clarity strengthens your identity and reduces confusion in your relationships. People may not always like your boundaries, but they will understand where you stand. Establishing boundaries also demands courage. Saying no can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are accustomed to seeking approval. Yet each time you uphold a boundary, you reinforce the message that your needs matter. Over time, this repeated action builds confidence and strengthens self-trust. When boundaries are absent, resentment often takes their place. You may feel taken advantage of, overlooked, or unappreciated, even if no one intended harm. Boundaries prevent this resentment by setting clear expectations and reducing misunderstandings before they turn into emotional weight. Boundaries also protect your emotional health. They help you separate your responsibilities from those of others, preventing you from carrying burdens that are not yours. This emotional separation allows you to respond with clarity instead of reacting from overwhelm or guilt. Respect from others often follows self-respect. When you enforce boundaries consistently, people learn how to interact with you. While some may resist at first, many will adapt and adjust their behavior. Those who repeatedly violate boundaries reveal more about their intentions than about your worth. Personal growth accelerates when boundaries are in place. Focus becomes sharper, distractions decrease, and energy is directed toward meaningful progress. Without constant interruptions and emotional drain, you gain the mental space needed to improve skills, refine goals, and build momentum. Boundaries also create healthier relationships. They encourage honesty, reduce hidden expectations, and promote mutual respect. Instead of silent sacrifices, there is clear communication, allowing connections to be built on understanding rather than obligation. Each boundary you set reinforces the belief that you are responsible for your own life and well-being. This responsibility is empowering because it shifts control back into your hands and strengthens the quiet confidence that comes from honoring yourself consistently. Growth rarely announces itself, and most meaningful progress happens far away from attention and applause. Before anything is visible on the surface, there is a long period of quiet effort where habits are formed, skills are sharpened, and discipline is tested. This silent phase is where the foundation is built, even though it often feels unnoticed and unrewarded. In the beginning, progress can feel slow and discouraging because there is little external evidence that anything is changing. Days are filled with repetition, practice, and learning that seem ordinary and unremarkable. Yet these small, consistent actions are quietly reshaping ability and mindset, even when results are not immediately apparent. Silence creates space for focus. Without the pressure of recognition, attention can be placed entirely on improvement rather than performance. This freedom allows mistakes to become lessons instead of public failures, encouraging experimentation and deeper learning without fear of judgment. Many people abandon their efforts during this quiet stage because they mistake invisibility for ineffectiveness. They assume that if no one is noticing, nothing is happening. In reality, this unseen phase is often the most critical part of growth, where resilience is developed and commitment is proven. Growth in silence also builds integrity. When no one is watching, effort becomes a reflection of character rather than a response to praise. This internal motivation strengthens discipline and ensures that progress continues regardless of external recognition or reward. The absence of attention helps refine intention. Instead of chasing validation, focus shifts to mastery and competence. This shift creates a deeper connection to the process, making improvement more sustainable and less dependent on external encouragement. Silent growth strengthens patience. It teaches the ability to trust long-term vision over immediate gratification. Each day of unseen effort reinforces the understanding that meaningful progress often requires time, persistence, and faith in the process. During this phase, comparison loses its grip. Without public benchmarks, attention remains on personal development rather than measuring against others. This inward focus reduces distraction and allows progress to unfold at its own pace. When growth happens quietly, confidence becomes rooted in capability rather than recognition. Skills are developed thoroughly, not rushed for visibility. This depth ensures that when results finally appear, they are stable and difficult to shake. Recognition often arrives suddenly, making it seem as though success happened overnight. What is rarely seen are the countless hours of silent effort that made that moment possible, the discipline practiced without praise, and the persistence maintained without knowledge. Action is the only language that produces results, while opinions remain weightless and temporary. No matter how strong an opinion sounds, it does not move life forward unless it is followed by deliberate effort. Progress responds to what is done, not to what is said or thought, and this distinction separates those who advance from those who remain stuck. Opinions are easy to form and easier to share because they require no commitment. Action, on the other hand, demands responsibility, risk, and effort. This is why many people are loud with opinions but quiet with results. Choosing action means accepting the possibility of failure, while clinging to opinions offers the comfort of safety without growth. When you prioritize opinions, hesitation increases. You begin to weigh every potential reaction, judgment, or criticism before making a move. This constant evaluation creates paralysis, preventing momentum from building and delaying progress that could have started with a single step. Action cuts through uncertainty. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions or universal agreement, movement creates clarity. Each step taken provides feedback, direction, and experience that no amount of thinking or discussing can replace. This feedback becomes the raw material for improvement. Opinions change frequently, often influenced by mood, trends, or social pressure. If your direction depends on them, your path will constantly shift. Action anchored in purpose creates consistency, allowing progress to compound even when external voices are divided or dismissive. Taking action builds confidence in a way opinions never can. Confidence grows from evidence of effort and capability, not from reassurance or debate. Each completed action reinforces belief in your ability to move forward, regardless of how others perceive your journey. Action also exposes reality. It reveals what works, what does not, and what needs adjustment. Opinions often exist in theory, detached from consequences. Action brings truth to the surface by testing ideas in real conditions. Those who act gain experience, and experience creates authority. Over time, this authority speaks louder than criticism because results cannot be argued with. While opinions may question potential, action demonstrates progress in tangible ways. Delaying action in pursuit of approval wastes valuable time. Time invested in movement, even imperfect movement, produces learning and momentum. Waiting for consensus or validation only increases distance between intention and achievement. Life responds to effort, not commentary. Opportunities open for those who move, adapt, and persist, while opinions remain on the sidelines, watching progress unfold without having influenced it. Personal responsibility is often viewed as pressure, but in reality, it is the doorway to freedom. The moment you accept responsibility for your choices, actions, and outcomes, you reclaim control over your life. Instead of feeling trapped by circumstances, you begin to see yourself as the primary decision maker in your own journey. When responsibility is avoided, blame fills the gap. Blame may feel relieving in the short term, but it creates dependency and powerlessness. As long as someone or something else is responsible for your situation, your ability to change it remains limited. Responsibility, on the other hand, restores agency and direction. Taking responsibility sharpens awareness. You begin to notice patterns in behavior, habits, and decisions that shape your results. This awareness is empowering because it reveals where adjustments can be made. Without responsibility, these patterns remain hidden and unchanged. Freedom grows when excuses are replaced with ownership. Excuses protect comfort, but prevent growth. Ownership demands honesty, which can be uncomfortable, but it also opens the door to improvement. Each honest acknowledgement of your role in an outcome increases your capacity to influence future results. Personal responsibility strengthens discipline. When you understand that progress depends on your daily actions, consistency becomes a priority. Discipline stops being punishment and becomes a tool for self-direction, guiding behavior toward long-term goals rather than short-term relief. Responsibility also builds resilience. Challenges and setbacks are no longer interpreted as personal attacks or unfair obstacles, but as situations to navigate and learn from. This shift in perspective reduces frustration and increases adaptability, allowing you to move forward with clarity instead of resistance. As responsibility increases, dependence on external validation decreases. You stop waiting for permission, encouragement, or rescue. Decisions are made based on values and goals rather than approval, reinforcing independence and confidence in your own judgment. Freedom is experienced when choices are intentional. Responsibility brings intention into daily life by aligning actions with desired outcomes. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond thoughtfully, understanding that each choice contributes to a larger direction. Personal responsibility creates momentum. Each small action taken in ownership builds trust in yourself. This self-trust fuels further action, creating a cycle of progress that strengthens belief in your ability to shape your life. True freedom is not the absence of responsibility, but the mastery of it. When you fully accept ownership of your life, your habits, and your future, you unlock the power to design outcomes rather than merely endure them.